Hello everyone, this is Timothy Mark with Alexandria.
How's everybody doing today?
And we are the Tickle Trunk of Horrors. And today's guest will be Darcy DeMoss.
Yeah, Darcy DeMoss.
And she's done a lot of films. Can't Buy Me Love, Friday the 13th Part 6, Hardbodies, Living to Die, For Keeps, Pale Blood, and she's done many other films, including Return to Horror High. So this is going to be a real good show right here for you.
But when you just quickly, did you know that Return to Horror High had George Clooney in it? I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so George Clooney was in Return to Horror High. There's actually a lot of big name stars in Return to Horror High, which I didn't even know.
Yep. Well, there you go. I knew he was in. I didn't know if he was in Horror High or Return to Horror High, but I don't even know if there's a Horror High or if they just have a Return to Horror High to make people think there was a Horror High. So I don't know if there was a Horror High, but yeah, she's done a lot of films, and she's still, even though she's been an actress in the '80s in a lot of films, she's still doing films today, such as Sharknado, Toy, Nightlife. She's done a lot of recent films as well, and apparently she has an audition today. So yeah, and the theme song that you just heard in the beginning, that was by Ryan Daugherty of the UK, and he put together that theme song for us. And yeah.
So, you know what, before we get into our special guest, I always like to touch about different today, or you know, since we're talking a lot about Darcy's been in a lot of 1980 movies, I'm going to talk about a few 1980 horror films for all of you out there. As we know, The Shining came out in 1980, Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, The Evil Dead 1981, The Fog, the original Fog, 1980, and again American Werewolf in London 1980. I could go on and on. So this sort of gives you all a take on, in the 1980s sort of really was the year, or you know, the era for kind of modern day really horror movies, the classics to come out that we all watch and everybody.
Well, a lot of the horror franchises starting in the 80s, like Nightmare on Elm Street started in the 80s, Friday the 13th started in the 80s. You have Puppet Master started in the 80s, Child's Play started in the 80s. I know everybody's saying Texas Chainsaw, but that started in the 70s. Halloween started in the 70s, but yeah, you had Texas Chainsaw movies in the 80s, and you had Halloween movies in the 80s as well. But we're talking about when they first started, and so you have a lot of horror films that started in the 80s. And Darcy will be giving us a call here in a few minutes. But before we get into that, let's talk about something that's currently in the news right now, which would be NAFTA. and NAFTA.
You know, it's kind of cool. Before you say that, we have an American and a Canadian on the show, and we're going to talk NAFTA.
NAFTA stands for North American Free Trade Agreement. That's NAFTA. And so with that, Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump really don't see eye to eye on the agreement. If you watch the video when Trump was over there in Canada and he was talking to Trudeau, Trudeau was trying to go ahead and pass it off as everything was good. He waited till Trump got on the plane, and then he started talking crap about Trump. And Trump responded that, hey, that's going to cost the Canadians a lot of money, his mouth. And so there you go.
You know, from my perspective, being born in Canada, I must say I'm very disappointed in Justin Trudeau as our Prime Minister. I mean, I could go on for days talking about it, but I certainly won't. But really, I mean, very poor form for a world leader to, you know, talk behind a president's back when he's sort of sight unseen, kind of a very poor, not very diplomatic. And we would expect more from a prime minister to, you know, if you've got something to say, at least let Donald Trump defend himself and not just sort of blab behind his back. But very disappointed in his conduct conduct, and he really is giving Canada a bad name with some of the policies that he's currently managing. But we'll leave that for another time. I just thought it was quite hilarious when we did watch that sort of news thing about how Trump made it clear to everybody out there that he certainly does not agree with the current way that NAFTA does sit.
And let's talk about something else Trump's done currently, which he's went to North Korea and he's talked to their leader over there, and it looks like he's actually going to be the first president in a long time to strike a deal with them that might actually result in peace between us and North Korea. Not just us and North Korea, but also North Korea will have peace with South Korea.
And I think a lot of people that have been bad-mouthing Trump, and Trump thinking that Trump was going to start a third world war with North Korea, I think people now are really stepping backwards and maybe realizing that maybe they put their foot in their mouth prematurely. And I mean, I'm sort of amazed at what Trump is doing now with North Korea. And, you know, it's never judging a book by its cover. And I mean, giving people an opportunity to work or to do their work. So, I mean, time will tell what this entails. And I sort of wanted to give out a shout out. I didn't know if I told you that my older son, Mike, has a Trump bobblehead.
Yeah, you told me that.
I don't know where you could get them.
So we'll say hey to Mike, hey to Nick, which is your two sons, and my son, Michael. So we say hey to all y'all.
We've got two Michaels in our brood and then a Nicholas. So there you go.
There you go. Yep. And so they all pretty much have something in common in different ways. But what else? Yeah, Trump. You got all the Democrats out there that are crying that Trump's elected, and they just can't get over it. And what
very strong.
They just can't get
opinions.
over it. I mean, this is the first generation, I think, of people that can't get over the fact that their party lost. Their party lost. You're looking at the Democrats lost. Okay. Me personally, I go with a candidate. I'm not really a Republican or a Democrat. I go with the candidate and what their plan is,
or their platform, and with how they kind of develop it, right?
Yeah, their plan for the country. And Trump by far had the best plan for the country. He wanted to secure the borders, and these same people that don't want to secure the borders, I bet they lock their houses at night. And there you go. But it is what it is. So yep.
Suicides, very sad state of affairs when people, celebrities are committing suicide. And you know, to all those out there that suffer from any form of mental illness, depression, there is help. Please seek help. Make a phone call. It could make a difference in someone's life. There's always help available. So for those that have recently passed, rest in peace. But certainly suicide is never a way to go.
Anthony Bourdain was the last one. Apparently, what we've been told on the internet is that he committed suicide. You know, people look at death as being a bad thing. I really don't see it as a bad thing. So you know, I disagree with the people who think that death is a bad thing. I mean, everybody likes to go to sleep and get rest, and when you're asleep, you're at peace. So, you know, there you go.
And you know, when we're going to be touching on one of Darcy DeMoss's movies, Can't Buy Me Love, certainly money can't buy you happiness either, because a lot of these celebrities are fairly well-to-do.
Robin Williams.
And goes to show you that money can't buy you love, and money can't buy you happiness.
Chris
people.
Cornell.
So it's not fame. Fame, I really think, is not all it's cracked up to be. There's a lot of pluses and a lot of downsides to fame, and I don't think it's always the dream existence that people think is portrayed in you know, social media and all that.
I'd like to say that for the most part, America has went to shit, and this is not the land of the free and home of the brave no more. You know, I'm going to touch base on that because it just seems to be this country's really getting I was hoping that Trump would change the fact that this country's really becoming a pussified country with too many emotional people out there. And I don't understand all these people's emotional behaviors, emotional comments. Maybe their estrogen levels are too low. I know a lot of the people who I mean, too high. Estrogen levels are too high. I know a lot of the people that seem to complain about Trump being president are in the gay community, and so there you might have a lot of high estrogen levels there. And I haven't seen Trump attack the gay community really, so I don't know what their complaint is.
Well, I mean, somebody's always got to complain about something. That's just the way of the world, and it's just the way it goes. So, I mean, if somebody is not complaining about something, the sun's not coming up fast enough, or their coffee isn't hot enough, then, I mean, I think it would be a pretty boring world. So there's always got to be some maybe crybabies crying the blues about something, and then they can plaster it all over social media, and they can either, they can really ride on somebody else's misery and sorrow. That's really what the world is waiting for somebody's misery or sorrow where they can just kind of
I think it just becomes time, because when Bill Clinton ran for office, I voted for Clinton the first time he ran. And I like to say that, so I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but it comes time that you just have to accept who's in office and stop complaining. I mean, stop complaining. What president have you seen go sit down and have a real true meeting with the leader of North Korea, Donald Trump? So, I mean, for Trump to also put the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem was a great move on his part, I think. Okay, I think this is Darcy DeMoss, so hold on for 1 second. Hello, welcome to the Tickle Trunk of Horrors. Is this Darcy?
Speaking. How are you today?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thanks so much. Happy to be speaking to you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on the show. We was just doing an intro for you, talking about some of the films that you've been in and things of that nature. And I know one of the things that I read about you was that you were actually born and I guess raised in L.A., huh?
Yes, Hollywood.
Yeah, and so the question that I've been dying to ask you is, to be born and living in Hollywood during the 80s, to be around in Hollywood during the 80s, what was that like for you?
Well, it was interesting. My mother worked for a photographer. His name is Vince Conti, who was best friends with Telly Savalas. So we were a lot of the time on the Kojak set, because my mother was his assistant. Not Telly Savalas, Vince Conti. And Vince was also on the TV series Kojak. So I kind of grew up on movie sets, and my best friend growing up is actress Helen Hunt. So she was always going to auditions and working, and I spent the whole summer with her on the set of Swiss Family Robinson.
Well, let me ask you this question: because the music scene in Hollywood, because pretty much where I came to know you from is, you were in one of my favorite films, Friday the 13th, and that was an '80s film. So to me, you were. I know you're still doing films today, but you really became a known actress in the '80s, and to be in that time frame with the music scene being what it was in Hollywood, did you get to take advantage of a lot of the concerts there?
Sure. I did do quite a few concerts. Kiss, I went to see, and ended up being friends with one of the boys in the band. And let's see, thinking of some of the concerts I went to as a kid: Earth, Wind and Fire, and Foreigner, and I was a big fan of Bad Company and Styx and the Eagles. One of my girlfriend's father was the lawyer to Cat Stevens, so he was at his house quite often when I was a child. So it was interesting.
At what age did you get into acting?
I started studying acting when I was 8 years old at the National Academy of Performing Arts, the American National Academy of Performing Arts, which was co-founded by Joan Crawford. Francis Lederer was my acting teacher, and he was a big movie star at the time. He did a lot of silent films. He did a lot of films in the UK, and he was my mentor as a child. And Helen and I studied with different people as well, like Maureen Tuttle, and so that's about when I started getting into dancing and acting, when I was about 8 years old.
Okay, do you remember the very first film that you've done?
The very first film I did was Hardbodies.
Oh, okay. Right on.
But I did my first commercial at 15 years old.
What do you remember what the commercial was for?
It was for Sony, and it was for a radio that they were selling.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty young to get into the business, and that's I wish I lived in Hollywood in the 80s.
It was I was a child, so I wasn't like running around town or anything. I was going to my dance classes and going to school and hanging out on movie sets with my movie star friend.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So a question for you, for a lot of the listeners that they may have this question. I think it would be a huge advantage. Like I said, you were able to, as a child, hang out on various movie sets, so you had a hands-on experience on really how the business was run, and really you had huge exposure to different kinds of film work, and I think it would be a huge advantage.
Well, my parents were in the business, so and I always looked older when I was younger, so it was hard for me to kind of break into it personally. But I was hitting the pavement doing those auditions, and sometimes I'd have 3 auditions a day, and I had some great people behind me. So I did learn at an early age to be on time, hit your mark, know your lines, and do the best job that you possibly can.
Well, let me ask you this question before we jump too forward in the future there. When you went to high school in LA or Hollywood, when you went to high school there, what was your favorite subject in school?
I liked English because I liked creative writing. I liked to make up stories and write them down. And I know that I did my first paper was on Africa, and I had always had a love for Africa. And I have been there 7 times now, and I became a professional photographer by my African adventures, and I've been selling and exhibiting my photographs in galleries.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen pictures of you with elephants in Africa.
Yeah, elephants are my favorite.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your films that you've done. Out of all the films that you've been in, the full-length feature films, what would be your personal favorite, and what do you think would be your fans' favorite?
Well, I believe my fans' favorite would be Friday the 13th Part 6. We have quite a following. It's amazing that 30-something years later that I'm going to these conventions and meeting the fans, and then the fans are bringing their children, which are becoming fans. So it's an eclectic group, and it's really been a fun ride. And I have to tell you that Can't Buy Me Love is one of my all-time favorites as well, because we just all had such a great time. The cast was phenomenal. Our producers, director, everybody was just wonderful to work with.
So your personal favorite would be Can't Buy Me Love?
I believe so, yeah. I think Can't Buy Me Love is my ultimate favorite. And I also did a film in Romania that and we had such a great time there. Just being in that foreign country. It's called Alien Abduction. And also I filmed a TV series in Manzanillo, Colima, in Mexico, where I lived there for 11 months. And that was pretty great, going to work 6 days a week.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now I want to get into the Friday the 13th film, because we just interviewed C.J. Graham a couple weeks ago, and that's by far my favorite film in the series. And the most memorable scene, like I was talking about with him, would be the RV scene. And of course, your face gets pushed through the skin of the RV. Which was, one of the most memorable scenes from the film. Working on that film, do you have any behind the scenes stuff or anything that was crazy going on?
Well, you know, CJ was in full character, and he didn't really talk to us. You know, he kind of stayed separate. So I know that we were filming, they were lighting the RV, and they asked CJ to go stand in front of it, and then they asked me to go stand next to it, and of course I go up to his, like, belly button. And so I'm standing there, and I looked over at him, and I said, "Oh my goodness, you are so scary." And he just turned to me full body and kind of leaned over me. So I was frightened, to say the least. I was definitely frightened of it. But he is, in person, the sweetest, most gentle, loving man you'll ever meet.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. He's a great actor, and he took time to do an interview with us, even though that morning he was chasing horses and running off cows. So
he had a pretty busy morning.
Yeah, you could tell he was pretty aggravated. He had a busy 4 hours before he caught us up. But yeah.
For heaven's sake. I was just in North Carolina with him and our director, Tommy McLaughlin, and the actor that I worked with who played Court, Tom Friedley, and Carrie Noonan, and Tom Matthews, and Days of the Dead.
Yeah, the Days of the Dead. Yep, that's one of the good conventions right there. Let me ask you another question, because you've been an actress for so long now, and filmmaking has changed over the years for sure. But what's some of the biggest changes that you've noticed in being an actress on the set?
I think in these lower budget films now people are doing self-taping, so people are holding up their iPhone and videoing their audition and then sending it in. So it's like, that's a whole new world of self-taping auditions. I actually have an audition this afternoon, but I'm going in to meet the casting director. And so it's just the way the business is now. You know, they're saving money.
I know that Jeff Bridges was saying that when he had to do Tron, that he walked onto the set and they were literally using, in one of the scenes, they were literally using webcams, and he was used to using the big cameras, but the cameras have advanced so much in a way that now that they were filming with little cameras, that he said he almost walked off the set of Tron because he's not used to it.
Well, it's a good thing he didn't. Right? I think that filmed really well in the box office.
Oh yeah, for sure. You got another question, Alexander?
Also, too, I was curious too, because I did read that you did appear in several of Ron Harris's aerobic productions during the late night.
Aerobicide.
Yeah. How did you like doing those?
Oh, it was really fun. My background is dancing, and I went in to meet him. And I had 3 auditions, and I was doing aerobics, obviously, in a leotard. And he was a fashion photographer, so he shot us so beautifully. And it's still the #1 exercise video that's out there, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
That's like 35 years old, and you can see me in the red leotard, and you can see me in the white leotard in the aerobicide.
That's pretty amazing.
Workout.
That's amazing.
Hey, let me ask you this question. Because I know that you also worked for the Playboy's sales network, and I myself am not familiar with the sales network. Was that like a home shopping thing for Playboy, or how did that work?
Yes, I was their first celebrity guest host for the Playboy shopping channel.
Oh, okay.
So I was selling the Kama Sutra love drum, and I don't know, a couple of other things. But it was because I did the series for Playboy, and I also did a pictorial for the magazine. So they popped me in there a few times to sell their goodies.
What year did you do the pictorial?
It was 1993, and Anna Nicole Smith is on the cover. It's a black and white, and she was Playmate of the Year.
Oh, okay. And then let me ask you another question. I want to jump to another horror film that you done, which was Return to Horror High. And what Alexandria was telling me earlier was because I've seen the movie Return to Horror High, but I didn't remember if Horror High or Return to Horror High was the one that had George Clooney on it. Did you have an opportunity to work with him in that film?
I did not work with him. I only had a small part, so I was there for one day. And I believe my character's name was Sherry Haynes, I believe. But no, unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him. But it was his first film.
Yeah, it was definitely his first film. And as of recently, you've done Sharknado, I see. And and how was it to work on that film?
Well, my husband and I are very good friends with Ian Ziering, so we had a blast. And I believe that we're in the director's cut. We're both shooting sharks.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
And I have a film coming out this fall. It's called The Onania Club.
Can you repeat that one more time, Darcy?
Yes, the film coming out in the fall is called The Onania Club.
And what is that one about?
Tom Six is our director. I'm not allowed to discuss it, but he did all the Human Centipede films, 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, right on.
So it's definitely in the horror genre.
Well, there you go.
Be prepared for a very wild ride. That's all I can say.
Wow.
You know what was crazy is and another thing for the future here is what CJ was talking about was the new Friday 13th that they're thinking about doing. It's supposed to be filmed in Covington, Georgia again, and he's expressed interest in doing it. It would be cool if they could bring you back as another character in that film, since it's also going to be shot at the same location where y'all shot Part 6.
Well, from your lips to God's ears.
Hey, I'm saying as a Friday 13th fan, I would like to see it.
Well, I would love that as well. It sounds like it would be a lot of fun to work on, and definitely I'd be thrilled to work with CJ again.
And I think one of the things that has drawn me to you is I'm a huge I'm animal rights person, or I call myself maybe a mini conservationist, and I really commend you for even with a lot of your wildlife photography that you're in. One of another actress or another person that I hold in high esteem, of course, is Tippi Hedren as well, for just being so vocal about animals and how we should treat animals with mutual respect. And I really commend you for using, for a lack of better word, your celebrity status to help the helpless.
Yeah, they don't have a voice of their own, so we have to kind of stand up and shout that the poaching is just, it's cruel, it's barbaric, there's no reason for it, and these animals are just so amazing. And to go to Africa, it's just to see them in their own backyard, so to speak. It's been a gift for me. And Tippi is probably one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life, and what she has done for these animals is truly miraculous. And she has passed bills, and she's shown, she's just been tireless with her activism, and I stand up and salute her. And she's a very dear friend, and I really can't tell you how much I appreciate her friendship. And she is my mentor, I must say. She makes me want to be a better person just by knowing her.
Yeah, and we have another guest coming up next month, I believe, that Linda Blair, and she also works with closely with animals.
Mm-hmm.
And but let's in your childhood, did you celebrate Halloween at all?
Oh, sure. Trick-or-treating was a big deal. Getting the costumes together and having all that fun. And I know you wanted to ask me what my favorite candy was. So my Halloween candy is, I like the Reese's peanut butter cup, and I'm a huge peanut M&M fan.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's strange. Hey, that's good, because that's what I eat too.
Oh, good. Okay.
But what about your costume? Like, what's the most memorable costume that you had during your childhood?
I always wanted to be a princess or a fairy or something glamorous. So my grandmother used to take my mother's old dresses and make me costumes. And I got to tell you, she lived in Chicago, and those costumes always fit me to the T. And she also made my ice skating outfit. So I felt very blessed and proud to be wearing my mom's old dresses that, you know, now were, you know, cut down and fitting me in a whole different genre.
So what does your mom think about your films? What did your parents think about your films?
Well, my father's deceased, but my mother, she doesn't pay too much attention after I brought her to a screening as Nightlife, and they opened up with us all dead hanging out of a Porsche, and she went, "Ah."
That was it, huh?
Yeah, so she said, "Please don't invite me to any more screenings."
So the next horror film that you got coming out this fall, do you know the exact release date of it, or?
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't know. All I know is that it's coming out in fall, and it's called the Ananya Club. And I personally started my own production company with two amazing Australian women called Wing Women Productions, and we're in the works of making a film right now called Angel Baby, and it's very exciting.
Now, what genre of film is that?
It's campy. It's like a Quentin Tarantino movie, like Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, okay.
But it's a female version.
Yeah, that should be really good. You know, that's one of the things I mentioned early on when we started this podcast show was it seems that a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't support the female, like, they'll go after the male action films and things of that nature. But when it comes to the female action films, you don't have a lot of support there. And so, Salma Hayek done one. This is a perfect example where she played the lead in an action film. It was a really good film, but it went straight to DVD. And
I think with the Me Too movement and all of the empowerment that's happening in the world right now, because of this whole, you know, thing that happened in Hollywood, that you're going to see a big change. I think there's going to be a big shift, and I think it's about time.
Yeah, I think it's time for people to start, because you know, here's the thing. I'll give you an example, like between me and Alexandria, even. Like, she loves vampire films, right? And so we went shopping for DVDs for a vampire film. And I'm going to tell this story, but the only vampire film they had in the Walmart was the Dracula's Widow. And so we haven't opened that thing yet. But the thing is, like, I'm very supportive of female action films, and I think, like, when you got Kill Bill and you got the Howling series, and you had, I even forgot the name of the one Salma Hayek was in, but I think that more people should be supportive of those films. I don't know why they're not.
Well, hopefully that'll shift soon.
Yeah.
If there's anybody that you haven't had the opportunity to work with, would there be somebody that you would love to work with that you've yet had the privilege to work with yet?
Oh my God, there's such a long list. I really love Angelina Jolie. I think she's amazing, and I love. I really like Tom Cruise's movies. I love his action flicks. And he just seems like the nicest guy. I know there's this whole Scientology thing, which I don't really know anything about. And but you know, as long as nobody's pushing me into anything, I'm fine with whatever anybody believes in.
That's so true, because you know, social media and all this hoopla, sometimes it can give people or the public such a very negative, false perception on what a person really is, and you're judging a book, you know, by its cover and not getting the facts, and it's very unfair.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let me ask you, out of all the directors that you have worked for, like, who would be your favorite director so far?
I think Tommy McLaughlin from Friday the 13th Part 6. He was really amazing. I really loved him, and you know, he and I we're still friends, and we're doing conventions together. So I have to put him at the top of my list. In fact, on July 13th, which is a Friday, we're doing a Friday the 13th revival at a theater in Hollywood.
Yeah, so CJ talked a lot about Tommy too, and you know, he seems like one of the best directors out there, actually, because you know, he gets a lot of good compliments, which is rare.
Yes, because he's kind and patient. You know, now he's a big star. He's singing in a band called The Flock, so he's very busy with his band.
Now you also did a movie called Reform School Girls. Can you tell us a little bit about your? Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your experience on that one?
Oh, it's really a campy, fun film where, you know, teenagers in prison. We're in reform school, and basically we're just running around in lingerie and beating girls up. And it's just super silly. But we had a good time shooting that as well. I mean, I honestly can't say I've ever had a bad experience working on a film, because it's a collaboration and it's teamwork, and you get to meet new people and you get to go and play. So I mean, I truly feel blessed. And you know, work has been far and few between the older us women get, but you know, I'm hoping for a resurgence.
What about when you were a kid? What would be your favorite horror movie that you watched as a child?
Hands down, Dracula. Dracula is so sexy. You know, he's immortal. He gets to do anything he wants. He flies. I don't know. I just think Dracula is the best.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. And I know you. I mean, I have to agree totally. And I know you mentioned earlier that creative writing and literature was sort of something that you really enjoy. Have you, like, published something in the written form, even something to do with inspirational writings? Because it sounds like, you know, what I'm getting from just speaking with you is that you're a very positive, energetic person, and I think that, you know, you could do a lot in regards to writing. Maybe you've done some kind of writing on your own where you've put it out to the public.
You know, I honestly haven't. I've kept journals since I was 10, and I would like to do something like that, but I think I'm working towards putting a photography book together, and I'm also working on a book called Private Moments with its different celebrities in their personal private moment that have, you know, some way touched my life, that I've known them or, you know, been around them. So I'm going to do write a little bit of how I went to come to meet them, and how we became friends, etc.
I think that'd be I am
working on that.
I think that would be a great inspirational book, and it would really give a human feeling to a lot of these individuals that are, you know, a lot of us think of as stars, and rightly so.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, it's a labor of love. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. But I am working on it, and hopefully it'll come into fruition sooner than later.
Now, is your production company that you've started, do y'all have a website for that yet, or?
No, we do not have a website yet. This is a whole brand new baby, and we're working on it.
Right on.
But I have a website of my photography, and it's exoticvisuals.com. So if anybody wants to check out some of my photographs, they can go to Exotic Visuals, EXOTICVISUALS.com.
Okay, we'll put a link to that in the description with the podcast as well.
Thank you.
So, and you know, I've released 3 photography books myself, and I tell you what, the majority of that audience is in the UK, and they're very supportive on the photography end of it over there.
Really? Okay, that's good to know. Thanks for that tip.
Yeah.
And congratulations to you on 3 books. That's fabulous.
No, I've actually got 13, but I appreciate it. I got 3, only 3 of them are photography. Hey,
wow, good for you. That's amazing.
I got to keep writing books. I got to keep bringing in money, you know. So.
I hear you.
But Alexandria's also got she's got 12 books herself. But I understand when
And,
you become a writer, you understand why Stephen King releases like 200 books, because you got to keep the sales going.
right. Yeah. You got to keep paying your bills no matter what. They come every month, right?
Yeah, yeah, no matter what. But I know I had another question and I forgot what it was. The it's as far as like, okay, you have, because you've been in one of the most iconic horror films of all time, Friday the 13th. But if you was to have, because we already done Freddy versus Jason, and if it was to be a Jason versus Michael Myers, who you think would take it?
Oh, Jason.
Why? Because Michael's got a small knife, huh?
Yeah, exactly, right?
he runs around with a chef knife. Well, I know that all the fans has been wanting over the years. They've been wanting to see Jason and Michael Myers. So hopefully that'll happen one day.
Oh, we'll see.
So you said your first film was Hardbodies. What did you have any problems on the set of that one, or did you find it pretty? Did you take to the camera pretty naturally there? Or?
I think the only thing that was challenging for me was the waiting time. You know, there's a lot of sitting around and waiting, and I realized that, you know, that's part of the job. You're being paid to be there at their convenience. Maybe they have to do another take. Maybe they have to move the lighting and everything. So sometimes you get there you get there at your call time, but you won't even work until the last hour of that 12 hours. You just never know. So as I was driving home after my first day on set, I was a little peeved, and I thought about it, and I went, well, wait a minute, this is what you want to do, so be quiet and appreciate it and be grateful that you're working.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that with union films, at least you do get paid. You know, with independent films, it's a lot different. With independent films, I mean, you know, you don't have that same benefits or pay rates as you do with the unions. And so, you know, it's that's the chance.
That's why we have unions. That's why we have a union, to protect us.
Exactly.
So we're not sitting around for 18 hours and not being fed and not being, you know, taken care of, so to speak.
Because you guaranteed a minimum for that day. For a lot of people, you know, that do SAG films, they guaranteed their money, their food, and certain conditions. Where you go to independent set, which we interviewed the lady from the Evil Dead, and it was an independent set. She said that they were in the freezing cold and they had no water to drink.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking.
Oh boy. Yikes, that's horrible.
Yeah, her name was Betsy Baker. I don't know if you met her at any of the conventions or not, but she does a lot of conventions too. And she was telling us the horror story of filming The Evil Dead with no food, no water. It was bad.
My goodness. I'm sorry for her that happened.
But it was a great film.
Now I'll remember to always bring my own water.
Yeah, you just never know, right?
Well, so
I had one more question, because I know a lot of the listeners, like we have listeners in horror, paranormal, and a lot of people may have this question, and I have this question as well. Is it hard or is it difficult to jump from one genre of film to another? Say you're doing a comedy and then your next film will be maybe slasher, horror, or, I mean, it just depends on the caliber of actor or actress, I think, that you are, that you can adapt.
Well, you know, I'm an actress, so I never even thought about it being challenging. It's just, it's a different character, it's a different day, it's a different film, it's a different job. But speaking of paranormal, I was working in Romania, and I was staying at this hotel called the Hotel Labada, and the craziest things were happening to me in this hotel. I was put on a floor away from everybody else. It was really, really quiet, because I like to have my music on when I'm getting ready to go to work and kind of turn it on a little loud. So I was sleeping, and out there they had double-paned windows. So they've got a window that opens, and then there's like an area that you can actually kind of crawl into, and then there's a second set of windows. Well, I was sleeping, and both sets of the windows flew open in the middle of the night.
Whoa.
Another crazy thing that happened to me was the phone kept ringing, and I kept picking it up, saying hello, and there was nobody on the line. So I unplugged the phone, and it continued to ring, which was super creepy. And my bathtub turned on scalding hot in the middle of the night.
Do you remember?
I could not turn it on. I had to call downstairs to have somebody come up, and because the knob was like pushed so far into the hot, side
Right.
that I couldn't even touch it. And I kept hearing voices outside of my door. So I get up and I'd look out at the peephole. There'd be nobody there. I'd open the door. There would be nobody there. And I found out that it was actually an insane asylum prior to being a hotel.
Oh.
And I nicknamed it the hotel lobotomy, where the brain did work, because it just took like an hour to get a cup of tea. They'd bring the hot tea, and then they would forget the tea bag.
Oh
They'd
my
have to
God.
go, to like the other end where the restaurant, where behind where the restaurant is, to get the tea bag, and then I'd like order a soft-boiled egg, and then they bring the egg, but they wouldn't bring the salt or the spoon.
Golly.
It's the craziest,
Wow.
craziest experience ever. But yeah, I mean, it was just really interesting.
Do you? What was the name of the motel? You remember?
It was called the Hotel Labada.
Hotel Labada. Okay,
Yeah.
Hotel
And
Labada.
I nicknamed it the Hotel Lobotomy.
Yeah, it sounded like it. It sounded like you had insane people working there. Yeah.
Right? I know. It was really crazy.
Outside of your experience in that motel in Romania, overall, how did you like Romania?
Oh, I loved it. And we went to the Braun Castle in Transylvania.
Wow.
And I went there with the other two actresses. And all of our cameras stopped working at the same time. So, there was crazy weird stuff there in Romania.
Is that the? Do you know if that's the castle they had for sale a few years back for $80 million? Is that the castle you went to?
I couldn't tell you, but I know that it's like the Dracula castle. It's
Yeah,
called the Braun Castle.
Vlad Dracul. Yeah, and one of his castles was for sale a few years ago for like $80
That
million.
could be it.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the people that are listening, or?
I just want to say thanks to everybody for watching, and you guys are great. I really appreciate you having me on, and I hope everybody has a fabulous week.
Yeah, I hope you have a fabulous week too, and I appreciate you joining us on the show. And I know you got a
Thank you
busy
for
day.
having me.
Good luck at your audition today, and we'll send you the link soon. Okay.
Break a leg, and thanks
Fabulous.
for everything
guys-
that you're
you guys-
doing.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank
have-
you.
Take care.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so that was Darcy DeMoss.
What a well-rounded actress is what I can say, and really, really impressed with, well, she's done such a wide range of work in her movies, from comedy to horror, and again, she's a wildlife photographer, and she's also a conservationist, where she is standing up for animal rights. And she did say that she's been to Africa many times, and she's really
7 times.
seven times, and she's a huge believer in elephant rights. And I know there's a lot of other celebrities that stand up for elephant rights, and I just think that she was a terrific guest, and being able to speak on different topics, as well as her work on such movies as Can't Buy Me Love, Hardbodies, Friday the 13th Part 6, and she's really, then she did those aerobic videos. So she's done a wide range of work. She's worked with a lot of people, and she's going to be heading out to an audition this afternoon. So she's got a lot on the go, and she's starting, she said, a new company too. So very, very, we were really fortunate to be able to have her spare some time for Tickle Trunk of Horrors. and you know, we like to bring a large range of different kinds of guests, whether it be horror, paranormal, and you know, a lot of different topics that we know that our fans enjoy.
And the oh man, the thing is too, with her new production company, it seems like it's going to focus on a lot of women led films, which will be a good thing. So hopefully that starts becoming more acceptable.
As you say that with a grin on your face, which is only right, though. Women should be more up there when it comes to action figures and action films.
Yeah, they should be actually. The thing that we did not capitalize on, I kind of intentionally, I know a lot of people listening would be like, well, why didn't you ask the question? But I intentionally let the question go, was the fact that she said that she was friends or became close to one of the band members of Kiss. I was going to ask the question, but I decided just to let it go.
Well, I mean, some things are, you know.
Yeah, I don't even want to speculate
need to get thrown out there, and I mean, you know I think if she would have wanted it mentioned, she would have made it known. So I mean, that's,
so I just let it go. So I did not take the opportunity to capitalize on that, but it is what it is. And so
you know, again, like I said, you know, she was in a lot of movies, and like I said, a lot of the thing that I didn't even know until I did a little bit of research is that you know, September 1997, she was the hostess of the Playboy's home shopping program on the Playboy Channel. That's what you mentioned. I had no idea that she had done that, or I didn't even know. I mean, how would I know that Playboy had a home shopping program?
I didn't even know that, and I watched the Playboy Channel back in the day, but I didn't know that they had a home shopping program. As a matter of fact, I was you know, I've seen quite a few Playboys in my time, but I've never seen the Anna Nicole Smith one, actually. You know, I think I was intentionally, I just was never an Anna Nicole Smith fan, so that's why I didn't see the issue.
Okay, but like I said, it was news to me about the, you know, the home shopping program, and you know, that's I learned something today, and I thought it was again very informative. And I like how she said that, you know, when she was in school, literature was big, and she, you know, she did a lot of creative writing. She does journaling. I know journaling is huge for people out there. People write journals on, you know, their thoughts and their processes, how they do work and stuff like that. And I really look forward to her book that she said she is working on, her encounters with Hollywood stars and her take on meeting them. I think that's a book that I personally would love to read, and I know a lot of our listeners probably would like to pick up that book. And I hope that she does something, you know, in regards to, you know, more positive things, because I know she's a positive person and she's always posting positive things.
It sounds like that motel, they were really playing with her there. Yeah.
Well, I think Romania would be a wonderful place that I would like to personally visit. And can you imagine the history there? And you know, she was in that room there, away from the other cast members, and having those strange goings on. I think that would be awesome. I mean, to me and you, I think it would be just almost like going to a theme park.
Yeah, it would be a theme park. It'd be better than Disneyland. But let's talk about our upcoming guest. It would be Bishop. You might recognize him from the television show Ghost Adventurers Crew. And I believe that is June 26th. That's scheduled. Correct. We have a bunch of other actors and actresses and other people from television and movies going to be on here, but we do other things other than this show. So sometimes you may see 2 or 3 shows in a week, sometimes you may see 1 or 2 shows in a week, sometimes you may see 5 shows in a week, depending on what our availability is. But we will do the book shows, which is the Bishop out of Atlanta.
Yes, and like I said, we're looking forward to that. We have a lot of people that are actually looking. His name is Brian, and it's Olette. Brian D. Olette. And like I said, Zach Bagans has had him on the show quite a few times.
Ghost Adventures
on
crew.
Ghost Adventures
Travel
crew.
Channel.
Yeah, and like I said, he is the exorcist bishop for the Old Catholic Order of Exorcists. So we're going to have a lot of questions in regards to exorcisms and stuff like that. So we're going to have Bishop Brian joining us out of Atlanta, Georgia, June 26th. So that's a show you certainly do not want to miss. I know my own son Michael is looking forward to it.
I don't know if we're going to make that a live show or not. It may end up being a live show, or I'm not sure where we're going to have callers calling in, so I'm not really sure yet. Or it may not be a live show, but if that one's not a live show, we will be having live shows in July. So that's it for me.
So again, we have to thank our very special guest, Darcy DeMoss, from joining us today when she again was getting ready for an audition. Thanks everybody. Till next time.
Bye.